Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 2 of the Utopiacast. I am your host, Erik Hogan, here with my co-host, Michael Beaupre. We are joined again by the wonderkin himself, Elliot Vajnitsa. Elliot, say hello to the people.
Yo.
Michael, say hello to the people.
What's up?
And we're back today in our second episode, and we are going to speak upon some things that maybe people within powerlifting speak upon every so often, but we might have a little bit different perspective, and that is meet prep and the meet day mindset. We're three very different people, although we do the same sport, and although we all try to get to the same destination, how we get there kind of differs. But before we get into that, let's talk about how training's going this week, guys. I'm actually going to start with Michael. Let's talk about how your lifts are feeling this week. We've actually gotten 2 sessions in this week. We usually are lucky to get 1. How are things going for you?
So we went to Jacked and Jilled on Wednesday, and that was fun. The gym was pretty nice, and I hit, 485 for 2?
45 for 2, and I believe that was a PR double.
Yeah, it was. Last time was 475 for 2, and that was like 3 years ago was my last PR double.
Yep. I remember when you hit 475 for 2. Yep.
Yeah. And you did 485 as well.
Yep.
It was supposed to be 475, but we upped it.
Yeah, we upped it a little bit. We felt pretty good.
Squat was good today. We both hit 405.
Yep.
That was sick.
That was pretty sick. We went to Next Gen out in Scarborough. Again, not necessarily a powerlifting gym, but a lot of these gyms don't have to be. And I quite liked it. It was, of course, all the gyms that we go to, they look a little bit bigger on Instagram than when you actually get there. It was actually pretty cramped, but that really didn't affect anything.
Yeah, the weights felt a little heavy today, but, it happens, but we got it done.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing that I think we're all kind of realizing is just because a weight feels heavy doesn't necessarily mean it's going to move bad. You know what I mean? Right. And Elliot, I think you're really learning that. How have your lifts been feeling this week?
I'm pretty much in the same boat as Michael. Pretty euphoric session on Wednesday at Jacked and Jilled. I mean, I really liked training on those 55-pound calibrated Rogue plates.
Yeah.
430 matched my PR single, and it moved insanely well.
That's right. It
felt really good, too.
It matched your PR single, and that is also 28 pounds over your meet PR.
Yeah, that's pretty euphoric, if you ask me.
I would say so.
The rest of the week felt good. I mean, we were just training at Salco Sport for, my bench day and stuff. And then today, Next Gen, honestly didn't feel that good, though. I mean, the weights felt heavy, but like you just said, watching the videos back, it moved fine. I guess it's okay. 355 for a triple on squat. 5 pounds under my best PR triple.
Yep, I believe so.
Yep, and then 20 pounds or 19 pounds under my all-time PR squat, so pretty good.
I would say you're in a good spot. Also, what did you bench today?
290 single.
290 single, which is your heaviest bench post squats. You benched 315 before, but that wasn't after squats, and we've always talked about how different it is to take a heavy bench after squats. So that's pretty huge. That's 4 pounds above your meet PR.
Yeah, also on Saturdays, we really emphasize being honest, long pause, feet on the ground, butt on the bench. 315, I mean, I kind of just sent it. I didn't even necessarily think I was going to pause it at all when I did it. And then I just ended up pausing it. I mean, was it a competition pause? Probably not. It was honest, I guess, for the Instagram video. But yeah, it definitely feels good to bench 290, extremely dead stop honest.
Absolutely. So, yeah. Absolutely. So I won't get into,
Well, what did you do this week?
Pretty much the same thing. So my Mondays and Tuesdays are generally speaking pretty, I wouldn't say low energy, but I'm usually not around a lot of people. I'm just trying to get in and out type deal. And that's the most volume I have throughout the week. So just kind of got that stuff in. Obviously Wednesday, I 485 for 2 on deadlift, which felt pretty good. And then today 405 for 2 on squat, and
literally moved effortless.
Yeah, it felt really good.
Yeah, it was so controlled.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I've been in the groove lately, and it feels really cool where you don't have to kind of second guess your technique and whatnot. You can just get under the bar, and your body knows what to do. And I've just been in that with all 3 lifts. Bench was really easy, just 250 for a double, and did some stiff-legged deadlifts. I don't know. Training's going really well right now.
Yeah. I'm happy with how this week went.
I would say so. So let's get into it. The topic today is meet prep and meet day mindset. Now, we have a little bit of an interesting dynamic here because I am the coach of these two individuals here, and I have prepped Elliot for 3 meets going into 4. I've prepped Michael for, I guess you could say, the meet that we did in 2018. I kind of helped you out with.
Yeah, you helped me. I mean, we trained together a lot, so you know how I am at meets.
Right. So 18, this most recent one, and then the one that's going to happen in July that Elliot is also doing as well. So I want to start off with the first topic here is how we feel leading up to competitions. So I think generally speaking, when people prepare for powerlifting meets, there is a big, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, schism, I guess, between off-season training and then meet prep training. When you guys enter a meet prep, what are the things that change for you in terms of approach, in terms of how you view the process leading into getting into an actual competition?
I mean, to be honest, for me, I don't see a huge difference in mentality or the way I train. And when I say the way I train, I don't mean like the sets and reps and the certain exercises. Definitely there's a huge difference there.
Yep.
I don't think that's what we're talking about though, right? It's like more the mentality behind, taking stuff seriously, like what we want to get out of the meet prep, what we want to, expectations we set for ourselves.
That's a big one.
To the prep.
That's a big one.
But personally, I mean, I don't notice that much of a difference. I can talk about it more, but Michael, what about you?
I mean, the way I think about it when I lead up to a meet is I just try and stay focused and
Right.
like I want to hit everything,
Yep.
any cap we have. I mean, in general, I'm pretty serious about it.
Yep.
In years past, I used to be a little bit more relaxed, but now it's like you just go in and get the work done.
Right. I don't know. I think a lot of it comes down to personality as well. Some people don't perform as well with that more stoic and focused manner. Some people have to keep it loose, but you have to know how you are as a person in order to actually elicit that, right? Like for me personally, you guys could probably speak to it because sometimes I kind of go on autopilot. I like to think I keep it loose fairly often leading into the heavy stuff, but once I get to the heavy stuff, I'm like a man possessed. So I couldn't go into like a heavy double laughing.
I think a lot of it is, well, Michael brought up when you're younger, you keep it loose. I think a lot of it is how advanced you are as a lifter too.
True.
Like what numbers you think you want to hit, if you want to qualify for something, this and that. Like you and Michael both are national level lifters. And meanwhile, I'm just still like working my way up. So there's a lot more for you guys to take seriously when it comes to stuff. I mean, for me, I just kind of go with the flow. I'm like, oh, this feels good. Like, let's do it. Like, let's just keep getting stronger. It doesn't really matter. It's not as, formulated. It's not as, mandatory that I hit every single RP, every single way. It's just kind of like, okay, this is what I like to do.
Yeah.
Let's just get better.
Well, and like, I wouldn't say like being a high level. I would say how much it matters to you.
True.
Some people, they don't care whether they win, lose, whatever.
Which is okay.
Yeah.
It's absolutely okay. But you have to draw the line in the sand for sure.
Right. Like, I mean, whether you're the top of like in the world or in the country or you're at the bottom, like even if you're at the bottom and all you want to do is get better, like you got to have a pretty good mindset. You can't be super relaxed about it.
No, you can't. I think the biggest thing, and Elliot, you kind of briefly spoke upon the concept, is how your mentality can shift when you know that there is a competition. And I can't speak for Michael, but I know that, you mentioned also the aspect of, higher level lifters and whatnot. I know for me personally, when I'm in a meet prep, every successive lift that I take, leading into the meet sets me up for the meet. And to me, that's almost like a do or die type mindset. If I don't hit the weight that I need to hit, let's say, for example, I want to be at a 450 squat at the meet. I know generally speaking, 6 weeks out, I probably have to be comfortable around 390. So if 390 doesn't move really well, what makes 410 the next week going to move well, and then 430 the next week, etc. So I know that each successive weight matters, and that really is a thing for me. Whereas in an off season, it's like, yes, if a weight doesn't necessarily move well, I have weeks and weeks on end to kind of fix it. You know what I mean? Whereas in a meet prep, you literally have a deadline.
That's true, but I kind of, like I can only speak for myself, but for me, like, I'm always trying to push myself, get stronger, even if it's like completely unrealistic. I kind of have that mentality. I know I just said that I'm kind of like happy-go-lucky, but at the same time, I do always want to like push myself. I'm always thinking, like this week, for example, a 355 triple today.
Yeah.
Next week, we're projected to have a 370 triple on squat.
Yep, that's the goal.
And I'm thinking like, wow, if 355 moved like this today, like such and such, how is that going to reflect on my performance a week from now?
Right.
This and that. And, it's not necessarily important as far as performance
right
at this stage in the game, but I do always have that in the back of my mind too, because just in general, like I just want to get stronger, whether it's in a meet, outside of a meet. And I always feel the need to push as hard as I can, even if it's super unrealistic. I'm not saying that's the best mindset to have, but just how it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to go on a maybe not necessarily a tangent, because I think this is pretty important, because I see the things as a coach, and I want to speak a little bit on those unrealistic expectations here. So I understand. I want to first of all say that I understand where you're coming from when you say, I always want to, push the standard higher and higher and higher and higher. And that's a good thing. I'm not going to say it's a bad thing. However, what I have noticed, especially with my younger clients, is setting unrealistic expectations also leads to a lot of feelings of never being good enough, right? So I am of the opinion that you want to have that second opinion of whether your expectations are either ambitious or unrealistic, right? Ambitious does not mean undoable. Unrealistic usually does mean it's not going to be doable. So I'm going to give you a scenario here where, your best squat in prep was, let's just use round numbers for, the sake of comparison. Your best squat in prep was 365 pounds at like an RP of 9.5. It was hard. You do have a taper coming realistically, and you want to hit 405 at the meet. Is it realistic to you guys that you think that you're going to get 40 pounds out of a taper after 365 pounds didn't move well? Probably not, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're hitting 365 and it's basically an RPE 10, like, there's no way you're getting close to 405. I would say 375.
Right, exactly. And I would say, 365 to the 375 range would be more realistic. But the issue is when you frame your entire prep around a certain number and you get to the end and you're not near that, a lot of people, they already counted themselves out before they even got there. And you double down on something that didn't need to be negative in the first place, and now you have two negatives instead of having either none or having a positive.
But I'm lucky in this regard. You ever think about that? Like, I'm lucky because every expectation that I set for myself and that you set for me, I kind of hit it.
To this point, Elliot, you're also 18, you're also 18 years old. We have to take that for context.
Well, that's what I'm saying is I'm lucky, or maybe it's not luck. I don't know like what you call it, but
it's kind of like beginner gains a little bit.
Yeah, newbie gains.
Well, realistic, Elliot, what usually happens is for one training cycle, we kind of feel it out, we see where you're at, and then we get a little bit more aggressive on the second one. So I think that 8-week style of ramping up into heavy stuff really works out for you, because you're able to see where you're kind of at in that first block, leave a little on the table, and then really push it on that second one. But also you have to take into mind, you haven't been training as long. That's going to be more doable. So like for me and Michael, if we've been doing this for longer, for me to say I'm going to put 100 pounds in my total next meet, very unrealistic. Very unrealistic. For you, very realistic.
Yeah, I know. For me, it's like the standard that I want to achieve.
Exactly.
Who knows, this could be my first breaking point.
Right, exactly. You might only put 80 pounds on your total, which would be exactly. So think about that. You only put 80 pounds on your total, and you're like, man, I wasn't that good of a meet. Meanwhile, last meet I put 16 pounds on my total, and I was like, yes, this was a great meet for me.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, even if I didn't put 100 and I still put 80, I would still feel like euphoric though. Like I remember you told me a little anecdote about how you only added 5 pounds.
Or when I went to nationals and did not PR my total.
Yeah, and it's like I know that stuff like that happens. I know I'm very blessed to be where I am as like a young lifter, kind of a noob, not necessarily a noob. There's a lot of things that go into my bettering my performance versus just like you guys having to get brutally stronger. So I'd still be happy with that. But yeah, like I do set those high expectations. I'm also just like a weird lifter though. Like when I like grind out my sets, it looks like an RP 10, and then I'm like, I had 3 more reps in me, and I seriously do. And it's like,
for those listening, Elliot's RPE scale definitely does not correspond with the stereotypical reps in reserve model. His RPE 6 looks like a lot of people's RPE 9, and that's not a joke. That is quite literally the exact scenario.
That is super serious, but it also just is like, it's demonstrative of how I have this like, I don't want to call it an ability, but You know what I mean? I always want to push myself more because I know that, like, yeah, I can grind this out. I can do this. And that's just like kind of where my mindset stems from as well.
Well, what I think is interesting is you have someone who, right next to you, who's the exact opposite. Where Michael, every single lift from 135 all the way up to 405 looks the exact same. And that doesn't necessarily register on the RPE scale because visually it looks like an RPE 3, but he'll say after a set, like, man, that felt awful.
Yeah, like today, I hit 385, I think, before 405.
Yep.
And that felt terrible. And you guys are like, oh, yeah, it looked good.
That was the 365 before the 385.
Right,
yeah.
That actually felt even worse than 385.
Yep.
But I don't know. I just like it to move fast.
Yep.
I don't like to grind things out. I've grinded out bench before in a meet, and I've had a partial like grind out with the squat back when we competed together in 2018.
Yep.
But other than that, I've never really like had to grind out a squat.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more of like, I wouldn't want to have to do that because it's so much weight in your back.
Right.
And like, not being able to stand up.
Yeah. It's kind of scary. It definitely is scary.
Yeah.
Squat, I'm not afraid to say squat definitely does scare me out of all the 3 lifts.
Yeah. Like if something feels heavy, like you don't want it to like scare you, but like you got to just be like, all right, I'm standing up with this no matter what. Yeah,
exactly. And that's why like we use nose torque and stuff like that. And it's not necessarily to hype yourself up. It's to get your mindset and you know, out of that failure. Like what happens if I fail? It's like, I need to do this or else it's going to fucking crush me.
Super interesting. I actually have a question for you, Michael, because so just to use today as an example, you said you squatted 405 for a double and it moved amazingly. Like watching it, it was like, wow, it looks faster than I can even move the bar, I'm willing to bet. And you say it was challenging. Meanwhile, I took my set to what most people would consider hell. Seriously grinded it out. But I would only call it an RP 7.5 or 8.
And I would agree.
Does that like reflect on your ambitiousness? Because for me, I'm really optimistic going into next week. Like most people would see that and be like, wow, that's an RP 10 triple.
Yep.
But I'm like, yeah, 370 next week is a go.
Yep, and me
How
as
does that reflect on you?
And me as the coach also, I know full well that you will have 370. Based on the 355, people would see you and be like, bro, that was your max. Michael, I'll let you speak.
So it doesn't really like make me worried about next week. I still go into next week with a plan, wanting to hit the cap, which I think next week is supposed to be like 420.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
And then ending this 6-week cycle with 430 for 2.
Yep.
I've never really, like, if 1 week goes bad, I try to forget about it.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's hard to.
Yep.
But, you know, I'm not worried about next week. I know that I've done 420 for 2 before, and I think I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, looking at the video, it definitely helps. Like,
yeah, taking video is really important, especially for people like you guys where you have drastically different, like Elliot, it could be like, man, that looked really slow, but it felt like pretty good. Whereas you, it moved really fast, but it felt like off, right. You know what I mean?
And you can see, like I said after I did 405, my hips kind of shot back.
Yep.
But I guess it's not a bad thing. It didn't look that bad, but it felt weird.
Right.
But like I said, after I did the first rep and it moved slower than I wanted it to, but it still moved good.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I'm going to push the second rep up as hard as I can. And that's probably part of why I might have misgrouped it a bit. But I mean, I try not to let it get into my head if it goes bad 1 week.
No, realistically, you can't. And if you do, that's how you have multiple successive bad weeks, right? It's just a mental hell type deal. And I think all of us do a really good job of, if something doesn't necessarily go well, it's like, okay, it's in the past. What are you going to do about it now?
I actually, years ago when I was like 16, leading up to nationals, I remember failing 345 on deadlift at the gym with my dad, and I was so mad.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think I was like a month out from the meet.
Right.
And I mean, I was young and I got very upset.
Mm-hmm.
But I still ended up somewhere around like, it was like 370 maybe on deadlift.
Weird, right?
Yeah. I mean, you just can't let those things like get you down.
Mm-mm.
Even going into deadlift that day, I was very exhausted. Like 225 felt terrible.
Right.
But, you know, you just got to push through it and try and do your best. And it ends up working out most of the time.
I would say like literally 95% of the time it ends up working out if you give yourself a chance. But if you don't give yourself a chance and you already count yourself out before you get there, again, we compound on something that's bad and make it even worse. So let's get into some more topics here. So we kind of just talked about how things kind of change from off season into a meet prep. Let's talk about another concept here. Powerlifting is a weight class sport. And me and Michael, we are in the same weight class, the 67.5 or 148 pound weight class. And Mr. Elliot here competed before in the 82.5, but he is now a 90 kilo lifter. Let's speak upon nutrition. Do you guys try to clean up your nutrition when you are, let's say for the sake of a meet prep, is around 6 weeks out? Do you try to clean it up? Do you not necessarily try to clean it up? What do you do there?
I think for me, nutrition is the biggest factor that I change.
I will admit, you do lock in pretty severely when it comes to the meat. When you're not in a meat prep, you do not lock it in.
When I'm not in the meat prep, I am terrible, bro. I'll happily admit that. We talked about it last podcast, fluctuations of like 1,500
calories.
That was so bad. I can't believe you fluctuate that much.
Yeah, I mean, it's not good, but like
4,000 calories plus or minus 1,500. One day you might be 5,500. One day you might like be trending towards like 3,000 or 2,500, whatever it was.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, but like I tend to exist in the off season well above my weight class. I think that's the same for most people, unless you're...
Well, we can get into that. Most people will be a little bit above their class. Maybe not well above, but yeah, deep in the off season, it makes sense to be heavier.
Well, I'll put it this way then. I'll use real numbers as an example. I compete in the 90 kilo class.
Which is 198 pounds.
198 pounds on the day. Right now, or I guess as of a few nights ago, I weighed 211 pounds.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are getting pretty close to the actual meet day itself. So we're not necessarily months and months out.
Yeah, so 211 pounds, that's quite a bit of weight to lose. And obviously I'm optimistic because it was a nighttime weight and this and that. And I've done this before, but...
Yeah, that skews things a little bit.
I'm going to have to lose the weight. And so that is genuinely something that has changed. I remember I used to be like, when I competed at the 83 kilo class, which is 180...
108. Well, the old 83 kilo class was 183 pounds.
183 pounds, and I think I was at like 195.
Right.
Up until like a month and a half out, maybe.
Right.
I always pull it off though.
I mean, yes. Do we necessarily want to do it that way? No. But Elliot is an adult, and Elliot can make his own decisions.
So that's just like, I don't know. It speaks to my dieting. That's what really changes, and I'll tell you what it is. It's the Fairlifes, dude.
You're a big fan of liquid calories. Let's be honest here.
I love liquid calories. I'm a fiend for liquid calories.
Yes, he is.
How many calories of Fairlife do you think you really in though?
In the
Like-
meat prep stage?
Like how many do you drink a day?
Well, so it's complicated. There's two genres of Fairlife, I would say, or
Right.
two classifications. There's the OG Fairlife,
Yep.
the chocolate milk, the whole milk, the stuff, which comes out to about, I think, 90 grams of protein per bottle and a little over 1,000 calories. And then there's the Fairlife shakes, the nutrition plan shakes that I get from Sam's Club. So those are 30 grams of protein per bottle and I think 150 calories. So in the off season, I literally have like, not so much anymore, but I used to have seriously a Fairlife a day, a huge one.
So wait a second. So you're talking about like the Fairlife milks, like the I think they're like a half gallon or something like that?
Yeah, half gallon or like a quart or something.
So you were drinking one a day?
Yeah, one a day, 1,000 calories, 90 grams of protein. And that's like on top of the 4,000 calories of like food, like McDonald's, stuff like that. And then in the meat prep stage, I switched to the Fairlife nutrition plan shakes. So I'll have about 3 of those, which is 450 calories, still 90 grams of protein. And honestly, that's like the biggest change I make now that I'm talking about it.
So essentially, when you enter a meat prep, the biggest thing that changes is you switch your sources of Fairlife milk, and that's pretty much it.
Well, it sounds kind of silly now that we kind of rounded this out, but
well,
yeah.
Well, maybe this is what it took for you to realize that it is pretty silly. But Michael, I want to speak on your situation because historically speaking, before this meet that we're going into here, you always were well below the weight class, well before the meet actually showed up. Now you did do one, I guess, weight cut before Worlds, but that was a different scenario that we talked about where you already committed to moving up a weight class. You got the call to do Worlds at 59 kilos, which is 130 pounds, and you're like, okay, I can't pass up this opportunity.
Right. Yeah.
Let's look. Let's kind of put that one to the side. Like I remember the meet that we did in 2018, the weight class that we were in, 66 kilos at the time, was 145 pounds. I believe your weigh-in was 138 pounds.
Yeah, I don't know if it was that low, but I definitely didn't need to cut weight at all.
No. So what did you just not, did you not care? Did you intentionally want to be that light? What was your mindset going into meets like that where you'd be so light?
I never really, it's not that I didn't care about gaining weight. Like I always wanted to. And I think I was always like, I guess you could say a hard gainer.
Yeah.
I tried to eat a lot. I was never very hungry.
Right.
Like my senior year of high school, I started getting, which actually was leading up to Worlds. I started eating a lot and I still did not gain, like still right around 145. And only recently that I've been able to put on weight. Like I got up to about 160. And that was after this meet in January.
Yep.
And leading up to the meet in January, I still was under. I was about like 150, but I ended up way under 148.
Yeah, the week of the meet, you just deflated.
Yeah. So yeah, back when I used to compete, because most of the time I competed at 130, so I did have to cut a little bit of weight.
Right.
Because I never comfortably was at 130. I was usually like 133, 134. Right. But yeah, I never really got to try to gain weight until I decided to move up.
Yeah.
And at that time, I didn't actually get to try to gain long enough because I decided to move up. Then I got the call, and then I had to cut back down.
Right.
And then a year later is when we competed. And even at that time, like, I kind of wasn't training super hard going into that meet that we did until maybe, like, I'd say 4 months out is when I took it serious.
Yep.
But yeah, I just never really got a chance to really try and gain weight until now.
Right. Now, I guess I'll throw my perspective, right? So I've done, I believe, 8 meets. I've done a full weight cut for all 8 meets. I've never been light the week of a meet that I've done. Was that intentional for, like, I would say 7 out of 8 of those? Yeah. Maybe the first one I was like around 146 pounds. So I was like, I might as well just sneak into this 145 pound class. And I had already done 2 Olympic weightlifting meets. So I was like, okay, I might as well just be a 66 kilo lifter. But yeah, so you guys don't necessarily, or Michael, you're probably going to end up doing one for this next meet. Elliot, you've done more dieting. I subscribe a little bit more to like a weight cut approach. So generally speaking, I am anywhere between 4 or 5 pounds over the weight class a week out. And for a lot of people, that is pretty scary, right? Because in this sport, although it's not necessarily a death sentence when you miss weight, if you want to qualify for like a nationals, if you want to, I don't know, if it's a meet where, I don't know, dots counts or something like that, and you're underneath your weight class, or let's just say you want to win your weight class and you miss out, you're now the lightest person in the weight class above, right? And that's usually not an advantage, right? So, very early on, for whatever reason, I got the advice that if you're a lightweight lifter, especially for us people who are, below the height of, let's say 5'7", 5'6", or whatnot, generally speaking, a lot of those guys cut into the class because it's just not easy to walk around at 130 pounds or 145 pounds, because as you grow older, you naturally gain weight, your metabolism slows down,
right? And
it's just not, and it's not fun, when you're smaller, and you don't want to necessarily be small and fragile and whatnot. So generally speaking, I found that it was a pretty big advantage. And once I started pushing that weight cut a little bit more, is when I started to see even more aggressive gains with it. Now, this can go the opposite direction, where you cut too much weight and you can't actually rehydrate, and that will lead us to something. We'll talk about that in a little bit here. But let's move into another topic here, and how we differ from each other when it comes to prepping here. Now, we can go 2 different ways with this, or we can touch upon both. We can touch on the programming side of things, how you guys see that, because I'm the one who does you guys' programming, but you guys can probably see a general trend when you get into meet prep versus when you're in the off season. Or we can talk about what we start to think of when we start to get nervous, if we do at all, and our mindset, how our mindset kind of changes the closer we get to the meet. So let's start with Michael. What do you want to touch upon here?
I mean, I think it'd be interesting to hear about how you go about training both me and Elliot, because we are very different lifters.
Absolutely.
Elliot does pretty high volume where I do very minimal volume.
Right.
But I see that I do a good amount of accessory work. I mean, I'm sure Elliot does too.
Yeah.
But I find that I work out best around like we'll say squat, like the 1 to 2 rep range.
Yep.
We could sometimes push it to 3.
Yep.
And on my light day, 5s seem to go well.
5s go well, and sometimes we drop it down to 4s. 4s do really well.
But I'll never have a cycle where I'm doing a max out 5 on,
or like a set of 7 or something like that. Yeah.
Definitely not over 5 reps.
Nope.
Especially deadlift as well.
Right.
I do well with very low reps, like singles, and then it seems like 4s have been working out pretty well.
4s work out really well, which is not typical, because what we see in modern powerlifting, because Michael's a sumo puller, we do not see a lot of low rep sumo training. You see a lot of people that hit a top single and then they're doing 3 sets of 7, they're doing 3 sets of 9 or whatnot. I can tell you right now that's not going to work out really well for Michael. However, we have someone sitting right next to him who is pretty close to a meet, and we're still doing, I believe, 8s on deadlift.
Yep, sets of 8 on deadlifts. Before that, the recent block before that, it was sets of 9.
Yep.
Before that, sets of 10, paused.
And beltless.
Beltless, yeah. I'm pretty sure at one point you even had me doing sets of 12. I mean, this was long ago.
That was a very long time ago, though.
So yeah, super high reps on deadlift, which is brutal. Even more brutal than that is super high reps on squat.
Right.
Like you said, you stay within the 2 to 3 rep range. I'm pretty sure we've also pushed my squats. I think the most reps I can remember is 9, but I'm sure we did sets of 12 at some point or something like that.
Maybe not necessarily 12, but we definitely did something of the like. So I guess I'll speak upon how programming changes for you guys. Elliot is a lifter that benefits, and he's a taller lifter. And his leverages are favorable for some lifts and unfavorable for others here. Now, maybe in the past we used to do higher rep squats, and maybe we still do that on the secondary day. What I found with you is we can't get away with super high reps on squat because your technique just breaks down. If anyone's ever seen Elliot squat, and he's super self-conscious, or he used to be super self-conscious about it, for lack of a better term, he kind of looks like a folding chair type deal. And that's just how his leverage is dictated. But I think nowadays you've kind of warmed up to the fact that that's just how you move, and that's how things go for you. You want to say something here?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been super self-conscious of that.
Yeah.
The way I have super long femurs, so I have to be extremely, extremely bent over to keep my bar path straight.
And to hit depth
squat,
too, right?
To hit depth, yeah. And yeah, it's true what you're saying. I mean, I notice even on triples, like my form breaks down kind of around the 3rd rep.
Right.
For sets of 9, it's kind of like light enough to the point where my form might not break down, but like depth might get worse. But
right,
like,
which is why I try to keep your higher reps for your variations. Like you're running high bar right now, and your high bar looks really well. It looks really good, by the way.
Yeah, it feels really good. Yeah, definitely anywhere in between that where I'm kind of like pushing it, and I have anything more than like 1 or 2 reps, I'll agree to that. Form kind of breaks down. Just because it's so like, I mean, I'm not going to complain about it, but just the reality of the situation, emotion, is huge.
Right.
Like it's literally huge. Like I'm 6'1".
Right.
Pretty hard.
It is. And the thing that I guess I'm trying to make the case of is when you, and this is why I kind of alluded that necessarily having a degree in exercise science like I do, in theory, yes, it definitely helps out knowing that like, okay, certain rep ranges should correspond to certain intensities. When you work with actual people, you'll find that that doesn't necessarily equate. So, and I like to bring up data. Elliot, 1 rep max has gone up substantially doing reps anywhere between 8 to 10, or maybe let's say 7 to 10. And, if you look in a physiology textbook, that should not happen, right? You need to be doing singles and doubles and like lots of singles and doubles in order for your 1 rep max to go up. You need to be around 90% or 85% for every single set that you do. Elliot's, if we broke down because we use a lot of RPE, but if we did, the percentage breakdown, a lot of his working sets are probably going to be anywhere between 65 and 75%. And he continually gets stronger, especially on the deadlift and on the bench press. Now, Michael is a little bit different where he follows a more standardized approach with those rep ranges. So like Michael will do like for today, for example, we had a top double and then 3 sets of 2, right? I wouldn't do that for certain people. Maybe bench press is a little bit of a better example. He deals with elbow pain, so we don't do a lot of reps that are like above 7, I don't believe.
Yeah, and elbow pain, shoulder pain. I just find that I benefit well with handling the heavier weights versus like getting all this volume. Maybe that's because I've been doing it for a little while, so like I just need to get used to holding that weight.
Yeah, and it could be, and you could make that argument, and I guess I wouldn't say that your volume is necessarily lower. Your reps per set is just a lot lower. What we do is we just add more sets in order to get that volume. Like I think of your deadlift day, for example. Elliot, speak of what your last deadlift session was in terms of what you did.
Yeah, so my last deadlift session, I had my heavy single, and then a tops back down set of 8, and then 3 more sets of 8.
Right.
And then after that, I had 3 sets of, I think 7 or 8 good mornings. I guess I didn't actually do good mornings.
No, you didn't.
RDLs,
yeah, whatever.
It's kind of a similar thing.
Okay, so we had a top single, a top set of 8, and then 3 more back down sets of 8?
Yeah, so that's 5 sets in total.
All right, and then Michael, what was your last deadlift workout?
I had a top double, and then I did a top set of 4, and then I think I had 3 or 4 back down.
I think it was 4.
Yeah, but typically it's 3 or 4.
There you go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like we're not necessarily, I bet you if we broke down the volume, it is probably roughly the same, but it's just the reps per set is much lower. But, this is extreme where they're at different points in terms of, where they've been training at and, what's kind of worked for them. Who's to say that's going to change? Or not going to change, rather. Elliot, you want to say something here?
Yeah, another thing, too, we kind of talked about this a lot earlier in the pod, but the way that Michael's reps are always super explosive, and I kind of have the ability to grind, is like if I did a heavy double, it would be heavy, but I would have the ability to grind that out for many, many more reps,
right?
On deadlift or squat, for that matter,
right?
Maybe not bench, but it kind of speaks to why I do the higher reps as well. Is like for me, right? For example, I took 355 today for the triple, and that could have been a heavy single.
I mean, after the first one,
an RP 10 single at first.
Yes, it did.
So it kind of is kind of demonstrative of like the fact that I can take heavier weights, and like I guess the programming would just be off if I took like a heavy weight for a single. In reality, I could take it for a set of 6 instead of 7.
Yeah,
it would still register like as a single, So you'd probably be doing service.
Exactly. And unfortunately, the only way that you can kind of figure that out is by trial and error. Now, I would like to say that I'm probably a good intermediate between the two of you. I do a decent amount of low rep sets, and mine is more lift dependent. My bench press programming, my reps per set is very high. Like the week of a meet, I'm still doing 7s on my secondary day. That's just was worked out well for me. For deadlift, again, I don't do a ton of, like I have my heavy single. I don't go below, I believe 4 reps, but I think the last prep I did 5 reps, and, I had a PR deadlift, and I had was one pull away from, pulling, I think it was 546 pounds, pretty easily. It just got turned down 2-1. And my squat, though, I'm the exact opposite. So, like, my reps per set are extremely low.
They're like, you had the exact same workout as me today.
Right, exactly. And on my secondary day, so I have 2 low bar days, I'm only doing sets of 4. Right, so it's ascending sets of 4, and then on my other day, it's a top single and then sets of 2. That's not a lot of reps per set. And honestly, my squat volume is pretty low. I'm only doing 3 sets of squats on my secondary day. And then if we want to count the single, up to 4 sets on Saturday, or the primary day rather. But if we want to count the working sets, still that's only 3. So I'm only realistically doing about 6 sets of squats a week.
Yeah, I mean that's very similar to how I go.
Right.
I do the safety squat bar,
Mm-hmm.
and it's pretty similar to you, like 3 sets of 5.
Yep. And the reason why we use the safety squat bar for you is to mitigate that elbow pain.
Right. Yeah, that's been huge to have that. I was constantly fighting that elbow pain all of last meet prep.
Yep.
And like in my bench press at that meet, I was having trouble keeping my elbows locked out.
And that probably had something to do with it.
It was all because of that.
Right.
When I had my elbows completely locked, it hurt a lot.
Exactly.
And I mean, we could touch on this. How do you go about with treating injuries leading up to meets?
Yeah, and this is a tough thing because sometimes it's quite literally like we're too close to the meet. We can't change anything. You're just going to have to get through it. And that's a tough conversation to have with someone. And you never want to be the person to say, just take some Advil and whatever. But if you're 2 weeks out, there's not a lot that you can do programming wise to make it better, right? So you're just going to have to kind of make sure that you try to get there in one piece the best that you can. If it's many weeks out, then that's when, and I'm glad that we had the time to experiment now because we'll probably run the safety squat bar all the way into the meet. Why? Because your squat is going up on your primary day, so we have data there. And you mentioned that your elbow pain has gone down substantially. Maybe it flares up here and there.
I think, and part of the reason why my elbow pain has gone down is because I have switched my grip on regular low bar.
That's another thing too.
And trying to find the right grip or right stance for whatever is bothering you is huge.
Yeah, absolutely, because all that stuff exacerbates it. But if it's well in advance, we can kind of see like, okay, what is the trigger here? Is it a certain exercise? Is it technique like you were mentioning? Is there even something that I can do, right? I know for me, when I get deep into a meet prep where my volume goes ever so slightly up when we do like an overreaching type thing before we taper back down, and Michael's seen it before, I get pretty severe inner bicep pain from the amount of low bar squatting and benching that I'm doing. And it hurts a lot and it happens every single time. And it's just something that you have to get used to because I know once I taper down, my trigger is volume. So if I do a ton of low bar volume, a ton of bench volume, a ton of pressing volume, that's just going to happen. But I know once I take it down, it's going to go away. So having data and being like, okay, you feel like this, but when we take all of this work away, you're probably going to feel pretty good. Sometimes that's enough.
Right. And you also got to take into consideration, like, could I get seriously injured or is this just pain? Like with your bicep and my elbow, it just hurts.
Right.
We're realistically not going to seriously injure ourselves.
Yeah.
Unless, I don't know, like something crazy happens with deadlift.
Yeah, God forbid.
But for the most part, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Things like you hurt your back, that's pretty serious.
Yep.
Shoulder things are usually pretty serious.
Yep.
But
shoulder, knee, and back usually are like the most serious because you can't really hide that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And they could be lifelong things that, like, if you seriously hurt yourself, it could affect you forever.
Yeah. And, I'm glad that you brought on the aspect of whether or not, does it hurt or is it going to lead to injury? And me and Elliot, we've had these talks before where he's had some lingering pains because, again, he's an 18-year-old kid, hasn't been in the game that long. And it's normal that when you feel discomfort, you're like, okay, is this going to get worse? Is this bad? Should I be feeling this way? And I think sometimes when you reach out to me and I can give you that objective point of view, you probably have irritated something, but it's not going to necessarily get worse. Sometimes that is enough for you.
I mean, I'm too like young and inexperienced to know like if I have this random leg pain, I'm like, obviously I go to the worst in my head.
Right. Like I'm injured. And
I'm injured, like quad tendonitis, whatever, this and that. I can't squat. And then I text you and like, if you had the same pain, you'd be like, okay, I need to do like one more lunge to warm up before I squatted. And it would like, I just tweaked something very small. It's like, sometimes it's hard to differentiate when you're younger.
And even then, and me and Michael still deal with this as well. Like Michael's been dealing with a knee thing recently, and it's kind of died down a little bit. Maybe it's not he still deals with it for sure, but it's maybe not as bad. And we've taken some quad workout, and it seems to have done a lot. But it didn't really affect his performance. He was still able to squat. It just was annoying, and it was clicking and stuff like that.
It's more so, yeah, like you said, it's more annoying than painful. And
right.
I mean, you never know if that's going to lead to something worse, but I mean, we just take it as it goes.
That's it. And then I like to bring up the fact, and me and Michael were talking about this before, not week 1 of this current training cycle I'm on, but the one right coming off the meet that I did in March. I had pretty much the same thing. My right knee was clicking every single time I would bend it, and it kind of felt weird when I would go down. Not necessarily pain, but it would just feel weird.
Almost like unstable.
Yeah, and maybe what not necessarily unstable, but just like I don't know. Weird is the only way I can really describe it. And going under the bar, I was like, I'm going to go under, and whatever happens, happens. We'll see what happens. And at 135, it felt really bad. 225 felt really bad. And when we get to like the 275 range, feels a little better. 315, a little better. And by the time I got to my top set, it wasn't there. The next week, when I came back into squat, I didn't feel it at all. So sometimes it quite literally could just be a couple day thing. And pain is a lot more complex than, I guess, what we kind of lead on sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I feel similar to that. Warming up, it doesn't hurt so bad. But, no, warming up does hurt. But then once I get to my top set, it doesn't hurt at all.
Right.
The next day, it's sometimes a little sore. But, yeah, it's been a while now that I've been dealing with it.
So we kind of briefly touched upon, some programming things, some, mindset changes, some nutritional changes when we are leading into a meet. I think we can come to a consensus that when we know that there is, 7 to 8 weeks out from a meet, we gotta, for lack of a better term, clean our shit up. We gotta get to business. Things like missing, like not getting enough protein, now that stuff starts to matter. Not getting enough sleep, that stuff starts to matter. Skipping your accessory work or doing X, Y, and Z, either incorrectly or too much or etc. Now all that stuff actually, it's kind of like when you take a test, right? So if you study many weeks in advance or a week out or whenever is the appropriate time frame, generally speaking, you're probably going to do a lot better than if you tried to cram the night before. Is there cases where people cram and do really well? Yeah, and I'm sure there's cases where people are like, okay, I'll clean it up at the very end, and they end up doing okay. Or maybe they don't clean it up at all and they do okay. Who's to say they wouldn't do even better if they did, though? You know what I mean? So I think we can come to a consensus that once it gets time to, do a meet, the focus kind of turns up to 10. And that's the biggest change.
Right, yeah. And I like to, leading up to meets with, like, at least nutrition, to eat relatively well.
Yep.
So, like, when it comes, say, 2 weeks out and I have to clean it up even more, it's not so drastic.
Yeah, and you spoke upon that. If you literally go from 0 to 100, it's very hard and it's very jarring. I used to kind of subscribe to that approach where I would just kind of eat what I would want in the off season, and then we would get to 4 weeks out where I'm 6 or 7 pounds over, and I got to switch to, and I'm just for sake of reference, like chicken and like rice and stuff like that. And when you're younger, you don't necessarily know that you don't have to do it that way. But again, it was harder to do, and I felt like I was hungry all the time. And realistically, I was just being a baby about it. But I'm glad that you did mention that.
Yeah, another thing too is I try to like clean up my hydration and like pre-workout carb intake, I guess, specifically because like it builds confidence. It's like it's what you're gonna do before the meet.
True.
You're going to feel good before each workout. You're going to hit all your lifts. You're going to feel you're stretching down too. You're not going to be as anxious going in your meet. Oh, will I have enough energy? Will I be hydrated enough? Will I be too tight? It just helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Generally speaking, the more variables that you can be in control of, again, generally speaking, the better your performance is going to be. So if you can take control of your nutrition, your sleep, your pre-training stuff, your post-training stuff, your extracurricular activity, you're probably going to ensure that you're going to do as best as you possibly can.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, let's move into the actual meet itself, competing on meet day. Now, again, I have an interesting perspective because I have either handled or meet day coached for these guys in the past. Michael actually handled me for my first meet, and, I've changed a decent amount since then. But I want to speak upon a couple different things when it comes to actually getting to the meet itself. Because again, you guys differ a lot in terms of how you guys either act and how you guys both perform really well. Elliot, you've gone, I think your worst meet, I think technically was 7 for 9.
Yeah, I think so.
Michael, yours was 7 for 9 as well.
Yeah, maybe it could have been 6. 7 for 9.
It was 7 for 9, yeah.
I've never actually missed a squat in a meet.
Right, exactly.
Actually, mine was 6 for 9. I missed the 2 bench attempts.
Was it 6 for 9 or was it 7 for 9?
Yep.
You missed the two bench
attempts and my third deadlift.
I guess that is true. God damn it.
Damn that third bench attempt.
Yeah, the third bench attempt. We fixed the butt lift issue. That's no longer a thing.
Yeah, let's move on from that.
But you guys both performed well at meets. Generally speaking, people on who work with me, I emphasize trying at least. The first goal is to go 9 for 9, right? So maximize the most amount of weight that you can move for your total. Because generally speaking, making a lift, even if you had 2.5 kilos in the tank, is more beneficial to your total than missing a lift. And let's say you had 7.5 kilos, but now you only get to take something that was 15 kilos away, and you lose out on that 7.5. So that's a bigger hit to what your possible total would be. So let's talk about the day itself. You guys come in, you check in. When do you start feeling nervous, or do you guys not feel nervous at all?
So I start feeling nervous probably like a week out. And I'm nervous all the way until I take my first shot.
Right. And Michael is not exaggerating at all. He is quite literally, I'm not going to go paranoid. That's not the correct word there. But he, for lack of a better term, is a wreck until we actually get to the first squat and he's able to kind of settle in.
I'm in the exact same boat as Michael, too. Like, I don't know if you remember, but I don't think it was the last meet, but the meet before, almost a year ago now, I was texting you like 2 nights before.
Yeah.
Because I had like the worst. It's kind of funny. I just had the shits like for like 3 nights out in a row, like numerous times a day. And I was like, Erik, like, what did I do? Like, there's something wrong with me. And you were like, you're just nervous, bro. Like, GI tract irritation is completely normal to be nervous. And,
yep. It's a real thing.
This is kind of dumb, but like I noticed that manifesting a lot before my meets.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, that's a real thing. Some people, it's nervous peeing. For me, that's the exact same thing.
I do that on meet day.
Exactly. I will probably piss anywhere between during the course of a 3 or 4 hour meet, anywhere between 12 and 20 times, and that's a lot, right? So for Michael and you, it's about a week out.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay. For me, it's like 2 or 3 days before.
2 or 3 days before.
The morning of, too, like late that night, I can't sleep.
Yeah, makes sense.
The bathroom.
The way that I'm nervous though is it's not that I'm nervous about like, I don't know. I would say because things are just so different. Like we said last week, we trained in a commercial gym.
Right.
I'm nervous about, am I going to screw up a walkout on squat because we have
a
mirror?
Right.
Are the weights going to feel super heavy? Like, and I'm a little nervous about being in front of people.
Yeah, of course. And that makes sense. Now, I would say I differ in that I quite literally do not even think about the meet until I'm like 24 hours out. And that's where everything kind of hits me. And I do that intentionally because I get in my own head very easily. So the less and less I think about it and the more I can just be in athlete mode when I show up, the better. And that's taken a while for me. And that's a whole performance, we can go into detail on the psychology with that. But I just find out that works out for me. To be honest with you, the only time I'm nervous is, I guess, warming up for squat. But even then, I feel really good when I go out to take my first squat.
To be honest, I feel like I'm only nervous until I weigh in.
I'm going to be honest with you. That's pretty much the same thing with me. The weigh-in is the most stressful process. And then, I don't know, I just go on autopilot and I feel really good.
Yeah, because once you weigh in, it's like, honestly, it's like all the work is done.
Right. Now it's time to go.
Yeah, you just get to like eat.
And lift.
Yeah, and lift. And you know, like if you just eat, rehydrate, get everything done, performance will be there. Hopefully, I mean, if you have good programming. If
you have good programming, you have data that you've done it before, and you trust either your coach or whoever is kind of guiding you. Realistically speaking, when you get to the meet, and Michael, even though that you say that you sometimes get nervous, I bet you would still agree with. By the time you get to the meet and you get that first one, you feel probably pretty confident after that.
Oh yeah, after I hit like my first squat attempt, I am very confident. Once squats are over, I think I'm pretty confident with bench. That's like been my specialty.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when I start to just.
Right. Exactly. And I would agree. I think I start to have more fun after squats.
Yeah.
Squats are always just really, really stressful. And being stressed is a little bit different than being nervous. I'm definitely more stressed out before squats than I am before any other lift. Before deadlift, honestly, I'm just kind of lit. I'm just ready to get after it.
Yeah, you know that I stay lit.
Right. Elliot is lit legitimately the entire day, just going yup and stuff like
my
that.
total would probably be up 5 to 10 pounds if I didn't waste so much energy jumping around.
Yeah, and just being lit and whatnot. But again, you'll settle down. You'll find out what's the best neutral zone, because that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's probably how you clear out negative anxiety and stuff like that, right? So
yeah, I mean, I just like being around other people too.
And that's cool too sometimes, because a lot of the meets that we run, a lot of people on my coaching roster are there, and then some people who aren't. It's still like, Ellie, you get along with everyone, so it's generally speaking like it's a cool social event as well.
Yeah, it's just like, there's no other word for it, bro. It's euphoric.
Yeah, it is euphoric. Shout out. It's almost as if we're in Utopia. Shout out the Utopiacast.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't know. There's not much more to say. I mean, I just love being around all the people.
Meets are fun, man.
Seeing how strong they are. I love them seeing how strong I've become.
Yeah, of course.
Even the people that aren't even on Team Hogan, it's like fun to catch up. Like,
of course.
Kids my age too. It's fun seeing like how I stack up against people like that, and it's just like lit, bro. Like, I don't know.
I know, and the anticipation leading into a meet is also pretty cool too, especially when you're 2 weeks out and you know that everyone's going to be there. It's just a really cool experience. But yeah, so you guys kind of talked about the nerves aspect. Let's talk about some different things here. We kind of talked about how we feel before each lift. Superstitions. All right. I am personally very superstitious. Michael, what I've come to learn, is extremely superstitious. Maybe takes it even to a degree above me. But we'll talk about that. Elliot, to my knowledge, you're not as superstitious.
No, not really.
Right, and I think this would be a good dynamic. So let's talk on Michael first. If you were to do a meet tomorrow, what are some superstitions that you have carried over the years? You can get as in detail as you want, or you don't have to, but just for the sake of reference.
So I would say my Superman socks.
Hey, Superman
always
socks.
Need my Superman socks. I've even, like, 'cause they're knee high. You don't even need them for all three.
Right.
I even wore them to bench press worlds because I needed them.
Right.
I always have to get a dozen donuts from Dunkin'.
Has to.
Not any less than a dozen.
What's funny about that too is last meet, bro only ate like 1 or 2 of them.
And that's the thing is, like, leading into this meet, I'm like, do I really need to get a dozen donuts? And I'm like, I need a dozen. And when we went to Worlds, they didn't have Dunkin' there.
Oh, they didn't?
No, so I had to go to some like mom and pop place, and I still got a dozen.
That's funny.
And I mean, it goes to show I didn't win.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
Before we started filming today, Michael mentioned this, and I thought he was joking. I was laughing. I was like, "Are you serious? Do you actually get those?" He goes, "Yeah, that's a thing." And I was like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah.
What else?
I always have to put my right wrist wrap on first.
Okay, right wrap.
If I have my left one, like say my dad gives it to me, I give it back and I say I need the other one.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you could say I always have to, like, I don't know if everybody does it, but I always have to, like, shower in the morning.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Just to, like, warm myself up, I don't know.
And also just for me, just like, it just makes me feel a little bit more less sloppy, you know what I mean? Because like this is something that's important. Even before sports games, when I was in high school, I would, obviously I wouldn't come home and take a shower and then go to the game, but like I would do that before games.
Right.
Yeah.
I always, like, Lydia will say to me, my girlfriend will always say, why are you showering before the gym?
It's so hard to explain to people.
I don't know. I feel better when I'm showered before the gym. She's like, but you're just going to go sweat.
Like, shower again.
Yeah, I'm going to shower when I get home.
That's such a hard concept to explain to people. Anything else?
I think that's about it.
I think that's about it, but I'm sure there's more idiosyncrasies that you have on the day. I'm also very superstitious, and I think these guys can attest to that because I quite literally approach a bar and do the exact same routine for every single lift that I do. Honestly, and this, it's become cliche over the years. People say I have OCD. I quite literally think that I have undiagnosed obsessive compulsive disorder, because if I don't do things a certain way, I just completely am like thrown out into the abyss. Like if I did not do like my deadlift routine that you guys see, if I do not hit every single thing in the right order, I quite literally feel like I'm going to miss the lift.
Yeah, is that like superstition though, or is that just like a routine?
This was going to lead me into my next point. So we'll get into what my superstitions are, and I want to ask you guys, when does a routine become superstition? I think for me, it's become superstition because routine is good. Routine is like you have a checklist. When routine starts to, this is my opinion, when it starts to eat into like objectivity, meaning if I were realistically, if I were not to do my deadlift setup, I'd probably still be able to deadlift over 500 pounds. I know I would be able to, but just deep down in my mind, I think that if I were not to do this, I'm going to completely fuck myself up and I'm not going to be able to execute. I think to me, that is now a superstition. More things that I do. So Michael has the right wrap. I'm always left wrap. What else? When I go under the bar, I do some weird shaking shit. I don't know where I picked it up, but I saw someone do it years and years and years ago on Instagram. I was like, that looks sick. I'm going to start doing it. And for whatever reason, I can't stop doing it. I've tried. Never worked out.
And you have like that foot thing you do when you set up for your squat. Like you like jam your ball of your foot into the ground.
I do?
Yeah. You've never noticed that? Like you twist your foot in the ground.
Oh. Yeah. And that's the other thing. When I unrack a weight, even if it's the bar or if it's 400 plus pounds, it's the exact same thing every single time. But it's quite ridiculous.
I wouldn't call that a superstition though. I think
that would be a routine.
Can we rewind to when you were talking about your weird shaking shit?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
So like I don't know. I watch the videos and I start shaking around before I get underneath the bar.
Like Dawson Windham shake?
I don't know who. No, we're not.
What is that?
Like
we don't condone.
He's like,
oh, not that. I'm not talking about like convulsing. We don't condone Dawson Windham on this podcast, so we're going to redact that comment. But anyways, that would be something. I'm trying to think of like things that I do on the day. Andrew Graves would be a good person to ask about this.
I have one for you.
What?
You need to drive your black Jeep.
I take the Jeep everywhere, yeah. So even when I had the Sentra, I would always have to take the Jeep to a meet. So you're right, that is something, even for people that I'm handling. I have superstitions when I'm handling people. You guys can see how into it I get.
The post-meet pictures, too.
Post-meet pictures. There's more that I'm missing, but I'm a very routine-driven person, and I feel the same way.
Do you have anything, so we said like with the wrist wraps, do you have to put your left knee sleeve on first or a shoe or?
Okay, so if we want to go down that route, every single meet, and this is going to sound disgusting, I use the same pair of underwear.
We talked about when we used to play football together.
Yep.
I did the same thing.
Yep.
I had the same pair of underwear I wore every game.
Yep, so I wore the same pair of underwear. I switch up my singlets now. Before that, I couldn't do that, but I do that. So same pair of underwear. It's always left knee sleeve first, right knee sleeve, and then left shoe, right shoe, and then I put the strap on for the left shoe, and then the strap for the right shoe.
I do the opposite. I do my right, and then
Right, exactly, and it quite literally has to go that way.
I'll pick up my left knee sleeve and I'll put it down and grab my right one.
It just doesn't feel right. Quite literally, it just does not feel right. Again, there's more, and Elliot's laughing right now because he probably sees how ridiculous this is, but it's just what works for me, man, and what works for him.
It's not super ridiculous, but it's just like I've never thought about that. But I will admit I do have my lucky underwear.
Right.
Yeah, red Calvin Klein's.
Right.
My only pair. They actually have a hole in them at this point, but I still wear them.
Mm-hmm.
I wore them last week for my euphoric squat session.
Weird.
And this week I didn't wear them. Squats felt like shit.
So maybe that's the key. So we talked about. So again, you guys would probably agree that when routines start eating into like, okay, if I don't do this, I'm not going to perform well, then that probably makes it a superstition.
Yeah, I would say that if it bothers you mentally, if you didn't, like you said, like shake under the bar.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I don't know, put on your right wrist wrap, left.
Yeah, exactly. And people at meets always want to make a comment about it and joke about it. And it's like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I've put my left wrist wrap on before my right, and it just felt weird.
Right. Exactly. Now, all right, our mindset on meet day. What exactly is going through your mind when you are at the meet? Let's say we're warming up for squats. What's going through your mind right now?
When we're warming up?
Yeah, when you're warming up. So when you show up and the weigh-in process is over, I know some people, and this is not a bad thing because once you go to a powerlifting meet, you're trying to do well, get super selfish. Everything is about me. And again, this is not a bad thing. I think personally, I'm one of these people.
Right.
And then
the same way.
And then other people are, trying to, talk to as much people as they can and trying to keep it loose. I know me, I am not trying to keep it loose on meet day. I'm the exact opposite of what I am in training, and most people can attest to that. Elliot, you want to speak upon this?
I'm honestly the opposite of you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like I would much rather have everyone else take their warm-ups like the way they want. Like, I just want to like take things as they come to me because I don't know, that's just the type of person I am, I guess. Like, if I'm warming up with Michael and Josh, it's like, yeah, like set your rack heights like what you want, like take your warm-ups, I'll like figure out a way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I've never really thought like I need it to be, about me, right?
Yeah.
Even if I'm not saying it's wrong. Like, there's definitely a time and place for that. Like, if you need your rack height to like be a certain height for squat, that's not like super like selfish, quote unquote. It's just what you need. But yet again, I've never been like that. I've never been fussy about it.
Right. Michael.
I'd say, like you said, I'm pretty selfish on meet day. I like with my dad, I think he's been to every single one of my competitions.
And I think that you're lucky because if you spoke how you kind of speak to people on meet day and if it wasn't your dad, I think people would be like, what the fuck is wrong with this kid? Yeah.
I get like, I get upset with him.
I personally like it.
The way I talk to my dad.
Not necessarily that you're like disrespecting him, but I just like that mindset.
Yeah, I kind of get stressed out. Like the last meet, Elliot and Josh were warming up with us. And I was like, I need my dad to help me, not them.
Right.
But like, I guess you could call that selfish, but like, I want to perform the best that I can.
Yeah, of course.
I'm kind of like scoping out everybody else, and it's like, I'm there to win. I'm not there to like have fun.
Yeah.
And I have fun. I would say I only have fun when it's over.
Of course.
Like,
of course.
During it, I'm stressed out. I want to do what I can do. And I've kind of been like that with everything I've done in sports. Yeah.
For me, it's always been, okay, I'm going to, get my weighing done. And once I've always been the believer of once you step off the scale, it is game time. I'm not necessarily, I don't think I'm an asshole or anything like that when I'm at, a competition or whatnot. But again, Andrew Graves, who's the person who usually handles me at meets, can attest that I put my headphones on and I'm not thinking about legitimately anyone else. There could be someone, how sometimes you see in the warm-up room, there's someone warming up, let's like a super heavyweight warming up with 600 pounds and everyone kind of turns and like watches that person like, wow, that guy's really strong or whatnot. I could honestly give a fuck about that.
Right.
I care about how I'm doing. I care about how my weights are moving. I'm caring about my performance and stuff like that because I spend 364 days of the year focusing on other people. I don't think it's selfish at all for me to focus on myself that one day.
For me, I watch that guy though. I watch that guy squatting because it gets me lit, bro. Like, it goes back to that thing where like you guys are stressed out, you guys are anxious or whatever, and I'm just like, not that you guys aren't euphoric, but I'm euphoric, and seeing that big guy squat 600 is like, wow, this is what I could become, or like this is what I have to compete against. It makes me want to do better.
Yeah.
Versus just like staying in my bubble. I mean, I don't know. I can see both sides of it, but that's just stay in the bubble.
I see what you mean. And I guess like once you get into, and again, it's almost like you flip a switch, right? Because I think for a lot of, at least me and Michael can attest to this, we're easygoing guys. I don't think many people would say that we're like arrogant or anything like that, but I could easily see people who don't know us and see us in a vacuum lifting on a meet and they're like, okay, these guys are either A, selfish, either B, arrogant, or maybe a little bit of both. But maybe that's why we perform as well as we do, right? That could also be one of the factors.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a pretty like easygoing person, like, and I try and like treat people well.
Of course.
But yeah, when it comes to meet day, I totally focus on myself. Like, the last meet we did, I think I was more easygoing than I typically am.
Yeah.
Because I was with my friends and
exactly.
stuff.
And you still performed really well.
Right.
But I would say the biggest thing is, Michael, you have a really good ability of when your bar is being loaded, there could be a bomb like warning going off in the distance. You wouldn't be aware of it because you're so locked in on what's going on. Now, Elliot, this is not to say that you don't get locked in or whatnot, but the way that you kind of channel that energy is a little bit different. You take what's going on around you and you kind of take that to and have it feed into your advantage. Would you agree?
I totally agree. I mean, there's definitely a certain point in time where you have to lock in. Like, if you're under the bar for your first attempt squat, it's like, what? You're not going to be looking in the crowd like, oh my God, or like,
no,
you're not gonna
of
be
course.
thinking like, oh, the guy out back just like squatted like 3 times as weight. But yeah, just like I said.
Well, what I've noticed at the meets that we've been doing is, usually there's a lot of people in that waiting area or whatnot. You're like getting lit with them, and when they get lit, you get lit, and you take that energy that they have and you channel that into yours. Whereas Michael, it's almost as if he's by himself.
Yeah, because I don't think about it as like, I'm not saying that like this is selfish of anyone, or like I'm not dissing anyone. I'm not dissing you, Michael, but like I don't think about it as like I'm here just for me, like I do.
Right.
Well, it's complicated. I do think about that.
Yeah.
I think like, I want to do my best.
Of course.
But it's also like, I don't really know how to say it. It's like I just love everyone. I've made so many friends like, with my little Instagram that I have. Like people, me. Yeah. People on other teams. Like
shout out Josh Dang.
Shout out Josh Dang. There's a lot of people I could shout out right now. It's just like I love meeting the people and getting hype that like we're all just like in it. Like it's really special to me when I see that everyone wants to do their best.
Yeah.
And not just that I want to do my best, because it's like, yeah, it's just motivating. It's like, wow, he's going to give it his all.
Right.
I need to give it my all. He's giving it her all. This is hype. Like, this is what we're all doing. Like, I want to be with these people, I want to be, because here's a good point. What would it mean to place first in a powerlifting meet if no one else was competing?
True.
So it's like, you want to feel like a competitor. You want to feel like everyone is getting super hype. Everyone is competing. Everyone is giving it their all.
Right.
And yeah, you want to be the best, but that means nothing if you're not a part of it.
True. And I understand what you're trying to say with that. Now, I think for me, it's quite literally, I mean, I would trend more towards, how Michael kind of, or at least this is my assumption on how you feel, Michael. You could speak upon how you actually feel. But from the outside looking in, it's quite literally like something drastic could be going on in the background. And you are so focused in on that one topic or that one task that you wouldn't be aware of it because you're so locked in. I would probably be the same, almost borderline to my detriment, right? Because I'm unaware of things like maybe my shoelaces untied or stuff like that. I quite literally have the blinders on.
Shout out Travis Sanborn for not pulling up his singlet.
We're going to go on a little tangent here. In 2018, Mr. Travis Sanborn, who is a friend of the Utopiacast, took the platform. His first meet in quite some time. He took the platform with his knee.
I think it was his first meet.
Okay, so we're thinking of two different times. The meet that you're talking about, he went on the platform with his straps down, right?
Yes.
On his singlet. And then the meet that I'm talking about, he went out to the platform without his belt and with his knee sleeves around his ankles. Just to let you know, generally, I think that was more so he was nervous than he was just so locked in. But that's not... You can't pull your knee sleeves up once you get out on the platform. I can't remember if he took his opener like that, but regardless, shout out Mr. Travis.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we kind of established that, okay, Elliot, you like to keep it a little bit more loose, but you know how to kind of rein it in. Michael, you're not as loose, but you're able to kind of compartmentalize and you're more locked in throughout the entire day.
Right. And I wish that I could be more, I don't know if you would say like present and like be able to take it all in like how Elliot does.
Right.
Because like after the meet, it's like, oh, that was so much fun. But like, did I really experience it like say Elliot does, where he's watching everybody and like, taking like all the hype, and I'm just like sitting in the corner with my headphones on, like just getting in the zone.
That's the same thing with me, man. Is just I have my headphones on the entire time, not only because I just channel a lot for music. I just don't want anyone to talk to me.
Right, and you have your head. Somebody looks at you, they're not going to say something because you have your headphones on.
Well, and then also body language. If you have your head down, obviously people are not going to, or hopefully they should honor not trying to talk to you and whatnot. And that's happened at meets before. And again, this is not to be like arrogant about things, but when you're a smaller guy and you lift a decent amount of weight, especially after squat, people are like, what are you going for today? Or like, that was a nice squat or whatever. And yeah, it's nice. It's absolutely, fine. But you can tell me that after, and I will absolutely entertain and say thank you. And I'll say thank you in the moment. But it's just not necessarily what I would like to entertain during the competition.
This is a very interesting point. Very like each thing that I want to say right now, but going off of what you said, I hate it when people are like, what are you going for today? Like that is probably my biggest pet peeve.
Right.
Because it's like, what?
Especially people who are not affiliated with us. Like we get some of the high school kids in our gyms, like, what are you going for today? And it's like, I could give you the nuanced answer and you're not going to understand it. And I could give you a number. I don't like putting a number out there and then having the opportunity that I don't reach that number.
I would say that's a superstition.
Yeah, I don't like vocalizing that number. I'll just say we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind saying what I'm going for.
Right.
But yeah, I've noticed that with you, that if I ask you, you literally won't tell me. And
Right.
we're pretty close, but you still won't tell me.
Right, exactly. That's just because I don't want to set that expectation for myself and then fail. If there's no expectation, then there's no failure.
Yeah, for me, it's not like the superstition. It's just like, it doesn't feel rude, but it like as close as you can get to rude. It's like, that's not, it's funny. That's not what it's about though. You know what I mean? It's like, if I'm present for someone else getting hype, I could care less what you're lifting.
It's true.
I think it's just fun. Like, we all just want to be the best versions of ourselves in that. And then you're like, what are you going for today? It quantifies things.
Right.
Where in a situation that shouldn't be quantifiable.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, that's ironic because we're at a powerlifting meet. It's all about how much we can lift, how much we weigh. It's like numeric values, but at the same time, when you get along with someone, it's like, it shouldn't be about that. No. It shouldn't be about that. And it adds this like certain level of like restriction to communication almost. Like if I'm talking to someone and they're like, what are you going for today? And I'm like, like what, like 100-pound bench?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, like I'm going for like 465 bench. It's like,
sometimes you turn people off with that and whatnot. And I hate having the conversation in the gym of like, oh my God, like you're going for that today? And it's like every single thing that you do, now they're kind of like looking, and it's just like, why did we even entertain that?
And like you were saying, Elliot, how if somebody asks you, like, I mean, like we know each other's capabilities. So like when we ask each other, it's not like
that's what I mean. It's a little bit different. Yeah.
That's a very good point, because if it's someone like us and we're like, we're like making jokes about it the whole day. We're like, yup.
Yeah.
Like for me, right? This next coming meet, it's all about like the 402 squat for me.
That's like 402 squat. Yeah.
Yep. Like, well, that'll like get us lit.
Right.
But if some kid comes up to me, what are you going for today on squats? It's like, just watch, like just wait. Like I'm just like, let's just get hyped together, Right. It's also different if it's someone you're competing against that like you're neck and neck with.
True.
Like, can I call someone out right now? It's not bad.
Well, we'll see. We definitely
may edit this out.
We may edit this part out.
Like, for instance, first person that comes to mind is Ian Brain.
Shout out Ian Brain. Who is definitely a friend of the Utopiacast.
Friend of the Utopiacast.
Very, very impressive teen lifter in his own right.
Yeah, super nice. No
ill will. Shout out Team Kang.
I don't even know if he thinks about me like this, but like when I'm at a meet and I see Ian there, I'm like let's go, because like
it's
I
game
know
time.
Our numbers are similar.
I don't think that's bad at all.
Yeah, I don't think it's bad, and like it's not like I want to like prove that like I'm better than him, and like he doesn't want to prove that he's better than me. It's just like nice to be in that league, knowing that you're in the same league as someone, and it's like fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I said, Ian, if you're listening, I don't know if you think about me like this. This is like, he's like, oh, I don't even know this kid.
Yeah, exactly. But he's probably like, who?
But I would say that's kind of just like friendly competition. Like say if me and you, Erik, went and competed against each other, we're there to win, but we're there to like also help each other too.
Yeah, exactly. Now other 7.5 kilo lifters, I could give a fuck about how they do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if I have a personal connection with you, I think it's the understanding that you want to do well. You also want the other person to do well. And if it, happens that, someone does ever so slightly better, then so be it. But it's not going to be I'm mad at you because you did better than me type deal.
And like last meet, I was lifting with Josh Dang, and he was like a direct competitor with me.
Josh was a direct competitor, one of my own athletes. Did he placed second overall for the lightweights? Yep.
408 dots, I think.
Yep, it was pretty close. No, I mean, not that close in terms of dots, but like on paper, it looks closer.
And I was right there with him, like wanting him to do well.
Right.
But obviously, I wanted to win myself.
Absolutely, and I think Josh would say the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And again, you didn't know Josh like that well.
No. Same with Zach Kang. I didn't really know him at all either, but
there you go.
He's a very nice guy. Like I got to know him at that meet, and the one that you put on recently.
Yep.
Like I'd say, like if we see each other, like we'll say what's up.
Yep. Exactly, and that's pretty cool. You know what I mean? And I think it's cool when you have the understanding that, hey, I want to win today and you want to win today, and we can both acknowledge that. But just, essentially the biggest thing that I've always come back to is I can do well and you can do well. I don't need to see you do bad in order for me to do well. And I think that's a cool concept that you see in powerlifting. And I think it's very, very immature you want to see someone do bad for your own personal gain. To me, you're not a competitor if that's the case.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you want to beat somebody because, like, by beating them, not because they did bad.
Personally, that's how I feel. Now, other people might not feel that way, and that's okay.
Honestly, I don't even like feel the need to beat someone. Like, yeah, it's cool, but like I don't ever think about it like that.
Well, and maybe winning and losing is not the right thing that we're trying to say here, but when you go to a meet, you don't want someone to be injured, or you don't want someone to like bomb out or anything like that, and like your placing is artificially higher or whatnot. You want to see everyone be at their absolute best. Ideally, we'd want every single person to go 9 for 9, have no more kilos on their total, and whoever was stronger on that day is the person who's the better man, woman, ever. But it doesn't necessarily have to be the metric of winning.
This is really philosophical, but like, it's like, gives you something to like strive for. Like without it, what do you have?
Yeah, it's true. That's why sometimes when you spend too much time in an off season, you don't have a meet down the line, you just spin your wheels and you're like, okay, there's no actual external motivation is fleeting, meaning it goes away. But you need some type of external motivation to at least get the wheels going. You know what I mean?
I mean, if we look at it, if we take it outside of powerlifting, competition
mm-hmm.
from like an economic standpoint is good for everyone.
Yep.
Like competition, like I just said, in terms of economics, in terms of powerlifting, whatever you want to call it, is like conducive to progress.
Exactly. It's very conducive.
That's what is important in this.
It's very important. But the problem is you get the people who are, and it's kind of, and I hate to say it, but it's almost like fake competitiveness, where you say you're competitive, but when there's an actual competition, you either A, shy away from it, or you don't really want that. You would just rather be the person who is first by default. And I think that is extremely prevalent, especially at the local level. You know, we see people, and this is going on a tangent, we won't go deep down into this rabbit hole, but, the people who we know show up to a meet, they place first, and I got a first place medal. If this is your first meet, good for you. That is awesome, and I think that's fine. But if you have a pattern of, this is your 5th or 6th meet, and you're just scoping out where, there's like you're in a weight class where there's only one person, and your whole claim to fame is that you have all these first place medals. To me, you're not really a competitive person. You can say that you are, you're not.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I would say having the competition there makes it fun. Like when I got back into it in August, we were getting into it to do a competition.
Right.
If there wasn't that down the road, I don't think I would be as serious as I was.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's always good to set some standard.
Of course there is. I would agree. Now we're getting close to the end here. I just want to briefly touch upon something that we kind of discussed leading into this. Michael, you might not be as passionate about this, but for listeners of the podcast, me and Mr. Elliot here are very passionate about music. And we use music in the gym to, quite literally, we have songs that match with the lifts. We have songs that we associate with certain memories in the gym, maybe certain memories in life. Let's speak upon meet day, either meet day playlists or gym playlists. What typically do you have on? Now, again, I know these guys personally. Elliot's music taste aligns a little bit more with mine, where it's eclectic and quite literally not what you would think for gym lifting. I'm going to, again, a tangent. Elliot's, at the meets that we run, we are allowed to choose third attempt music. Elliot's third attempt songs for each lift were Love Again by Dua Lipa on squat, When You Were Young by The Killers on bench press, and then Chasing Pavements by Adele for his third attempt deadlift. Elliot, I know that you're chomping at the bits, but I'm actually going to start with Michael. Michael, what type of music are you into? What type of stuff do you have playing in the headphones when you're training?
I think we talked about it a little bit. I'm more into like rap. Okay. We said like mumble rap.
Yeah, Michael likes like the ignorant stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. It just kind of gets me hyped.
Yeah.
I would say I need my music to work out and like go for the heavy lifts.
Right.
But like outside of the gym, like I don't listen to that stuff that much.
Right, and you're not like super passionate about like lyrics and stuff like that.
Yeah, like I would say I listen to more of the stuff like you guys listen to in the gym, outside of the gym, because that stuff doesn't get me hyped.
Yeah, exactly. That makes it. And I mean, from the outside perspective, that's fine. And we were talking before we started recording this. One of the memories I have from Michael, first time he squatted 405, it was to the song "Fifi" by Tekashi 6ix9ine and Nicki Minaj. And I remember he played it, and I was like, this is what he's listening to before 405, but you know what? Whatever floats your boat. We're not music shamers on the Utopiacast here. Let's go to Elliot here. How would you describe your music taste? If you could describe it in one sentence, how would you do it?
That's really tricky. I would say, I mean, I don't want to say anything stupid to like get hate.
Could you do one word?
I'd say euphoric.
Euphoric would be a good word. Bro, honestly, yeah, euphoric. I mean, that's a subjective thing, but
That's how you would describe it.
Why not? That's how I would describe it. I mean, we talked about superstition earlier.
Yeah.
If there's one thing that I'm superstitious about other than my lucky underwear, it would probably be my music taste.
Absolutely.
Especially on meet day. The biggest example being chasing pavements for my third attempt deadlift. I think I need that. There's another song. I don't know if you guys know this one. You ever watch the Studio Ghibli movies?
No.
There's one, Howl's Moving Castle, song from the OST called Merry Go Round of Life. It's like orchestral, like, you know, I'm pretty sure I put it on for you one time.
Yes, you did.
What is this shit?
I mean, he put it on for me, and I was like, Elliot, you listening to the Portland Symphony Orchestra? This is like, what is the deal here? He's like, bro, you don't understand.
Yeah, you really don't. It's like, I don't know. I just need it. I need it to unlock something in me. And like I said, if there's one thing that I'm superstitious about, it's song
right.
choice.
Yeah.
For squat, it's totally different. For bench, it's totally different. For deadlift, it's totally different. But like, I have very particular songs that I need to listen to. And I actually think it's funny that Michael was like, it's so different. Like in the gym, I put on mumble rap and then I wouldn't listen to it outside of the gym. I am bumping gym songs
all day,
24/7. Like if I'm doing anything in my house, I have my headphones on.
Right.
If I'm in the car, I'm auxed up, you know?
Right.
Listening to the same type of music. And like when I hear a good song outside of the gym, automatically I'm like, oh yeah, this is
going on in the gym underneath the bar. Yeah, I'm the same way.
Exactly, because I like need it. Like it drives me, bro. I
now,
don't know how to.
Elliot somehow is still doing it disservice. This kid, quite literally, there's been times where we've actually had a conversation of you were spending way too much time hovering around the bar waiting for the bass line of the song to drop, that it's affecting like actually how you're lifting. You think it's helping you and it's not. And he's like, oh, you're right, bro. But like, this is literally goes to show that he like relies on, and this is not necessarily a bad thing. I know a lot of people say like you shouldn't rely on music because it won't be there on meet day and whatnot, but life's too short. Grow up. I think you're going to be fine.
Yeah, I think that's a really stupid mentality to have too.
I think it's a really stupid mentality, and that you're just making yourself miserable during training. So
if you take a step back from lifting and you think about music as a whole, like what is the purpose of music? What is the purpose of art?
Elliot is going down a very transcendental path recently. We're not going to entertain that thought, Elliot, because I don't know.
No. Seriously though, like it's supposed to make you feel.
Yeah, and I'm also being serious. We're not going to necessarily entertain that. How would you guys describe my music taste?
I mean, I don't really know what you listen to now, but you said similar to like what Elliot listens to. But I know back like a few years ago, you were pretty into Ariana Grande.
I mean, I would like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's for whatever reason that stuck with you.
Yeah, I don't know what it was because we're in the gym and you're listening to Ariana Grande. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah,
like,
it was when
are you getting hyped from this?
It was when the Sweetener album came out. That was No Tears Left to Cry and God Is a Woman. Those are one of my favorite songs.
Yeah, I can't give a single word, like because we have very similar tastes, so I would probably call it euphoric as well.
Yeah.
But the first things that the first genres that come to mind when I think of you are like first and foremost like R&B.
Yeah, I would say I'm probably the R&B guy.
Maybe not calm, but you know, like that same type of vibe.
Yeah.
And then pop.
I'm a very big pop music fan.
Pop. What would you call? I guess like indie.
Yeah, I would also say I'm an indie fan as well.
Not as
alternative.
Yeah, alternative. Not as much like rap and hip hop.
Although I do love rap music.
No, that's true, but it doesn't like. It would feel wrong to call it like what Michael does.
Yeah,
it's
true.
Like, I know, you know, this is extremely relevant. Shout out Kendrick Lamar for dropping that new album.
Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers.
Yeah, I know when you get hyped to a hip hop song like that, not because it's just like, okay, here's a fat bass line. Here's
right,
a fat
exactly.
808.
Yep.
This is a nice like chime. Like, oh, he just said like, let's fuck some bitches.
Right.
It's like, okay.
Although sometimes you know that I can get down that path when I listen to Bust It Remix by Travis Scott.
Sometimes, but it's like, yeah, I would say it's very like, I don't know.
Let's before we do shout outs here, I want to end it off with, if you were to choose a song right now, if you were about to max out your squat, max out your bench press, and max out your deadlift, what song would you choose? I'll give you guys some time to think. I will start off. For me, it's always been this pretty much the same two songs for squat and deadlift, and bench press has kind of changed over the years. My squat is always going to be New God Flow by Pusha T and Kanye West and Ghostface Killah. That's always been the song. That's always been the go-to. I really resonate with that song, or that line, step on they necks so they can't breathe. So that kind of goes to what my mindset is when I go under a heavy squat. The deadlift would be Sweet Nothing by Calvin Harris. Elliot can speak to this. It's just an absolutely euphoric song.
Simply magnificent.
It quite literally, just having like a woman sing in your ear while you're like a high beats per minute beat is playing. I don't know. It's just a truly euphoric feeling. And even then, some of the words just really get me. I'm more of an emotional lifter, as you can see. And then Bench Press is a song that is quite obscure. It is by Ashanti, and it's called Only You. It kind of sounds like a hard rock song, but it's got a pop, pop singing style above it. Historically, it's been What Comes Around by Justin Timberlake. That has usually been my bench press song. It made me think about a time in my life where I was spited. We're not going to go into detail on that one. Elliot.
Obviously for deadlift, choosing Chasing Paper by Adele.
And Elliot, I really don't want to cut you off, but it was quite literally one of the most beautiful moments in my life. Even though you did not get the lift, it was a beautiful moment when Should I Give Up was playing while you were attempting the deadlift.
Yep, and I still got it up. Gym PR.
Yeah, gym PR.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and tell me your bench and your squat?
Yeah, so that's my deadlift. For bench, it's a little bit more ambiguous. Like, I don't necessarily have a superstitious bench song because...
So what would you pick today?
Today, I would pick...
What did you listen to before you took your heavy bench today?
Yeah. N95, Kendrick Lamar.
N95, so that came out quite literally yesterday.
Yep, quite literally. And it's just, I find that bench, I don't have to... It's always come easy to me.
Yep.
So I don't have to get in the zone as much, and I can just get, like, kind of, drawing on kind of Michael's vibe, like some hype going. Not necessarily dig into, like, a deep... Hey, this is what's happening right now. And then for squat, bro, Careless Whisper.
Tonight the music seems so loud. That's
specifically the bridge, yeah.
Me and Elliot had an emotional moment going down to Titan Barbell with that song.
Yeah, I
wish that we could lose this crowd.
It's better this way.
We're going to get too emotional. We're going to have to go to Michael for this one.
I'm tearing up right now.
Yeah. Michael, what do you got? So if you were going to max out today, what are the 3 songs?
I don't know if I have 3. I've been listening to a little bit like the older Eminem stuff. Yeah, since he was on the Super Bowl, I started listening to him.
My favorite song by Eminem is Superman.
Yeah, that's a good one. I've been listening to Cinderella Man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ready by Lil Baby.
Okay.
It's I don't know. I listen to that one just like in general, not like necessarily for a big lift, but I'll sometimes listen to that.
Right.
I think that's it. I kind of just pick whatever's on.
Yeah.
Yeah, those 2.
Right. Well, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't do our weekly segment here called Shoutouts. I don't know if you guys thought of a shout out. I guess I will start first. So for this week's segment shout out, I kind of came down to 2 concepts. I could either have gone with what I've been consuming a lot lately, kind of along the same lines of what I talked about last week, or I could pick a supplement. Because, I use supplements, of course, drug tested, not talking about those type of supplements, but, vitamins, minerals, stuff like that. And I decided that's boring. I'm going to shout out the concept of McDonald's. McDonald's, to me, is as healthy or as unhealthy as you want to make it. I think it gets a really bad rap. I think when you go to the average person, you say McDonald's, they're like, oh, that shit's so bad for you. And it's like, well, okay, do you know what exactly you're taking in? What are you getting? It's like, well, I'm getting like a large fry and I'm getting McNuggets and whatnot. If you get a couple burgers or like a McChicken or whatnot, look at the macronutrient account. Instead of getting a soda, get a smoothie. Realistically, you're fine. And it's pretty cheap. It's good. I'm going to be honest. If it wasn't necessarily I had to pay for it, I'd probably eat a McDonald's every single day of my life. And I'm willing to die on that hill. Elliot, what would you like to shout out?
This is going to sound extremely obscure and vague. Shout out frogs, bro.
Okay, so we shout out frogs. So it was one of our first amphibious shout out.
Exactly. Recently, I had the joy of watching. I'm an anime enjoyer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna say that flat out. I had the joy of watching a show that really piqued my fancy, and one of the scenes, beautifully illustrated show, 3 frogs sitting like one on top of the other, and just made me think.
A little emotional.
Yeah, euphoric.
Shout out frogs.
And like think about it, they jump and they.
That's emotional.
Yeah, so
that is absolutely emotional. Michael, what would you like to shout out?
I want to shout out Jacked and Jilled.
Ooh, okay. So Jack and Jill, that's definitely a friend of the Utopiacast, a friend of USAPL, man.
Yep. It was a pretty lit session last week.
It was, and I think we've kind of talked about that. We're probably going to go there more often. Maybe not every week, but definitely more often.
Yeah, so shout out them.
Yeah, absolutely. Good gym. All right, so I think that would wrap up week 2 of the Utopiacast. Of course, we discussed some meat day stuff. Not to say we won't bring it up in the future. In closing, do you guys have anything that you would like to say before we go? Elliot?
I think I'm all set.
Michael?
I think I'm good. We'll see you next week.
Yep, we'll see you guys next week. Hopefully same day, same time. If not, you'll be seeing or hearing from us very soon. Have a good one, guys.
Stay euphoric.